Arrays are one of the most important elements and one of the most used in JavaScript and in programming in general. And in this video, I'll be covering 11 array methods that will help you work with arrays more effectively. So let's quickly jump right into it. Don't forget to like and share this video and also subscribe to my channel.
Create a new array, and I'll say array numbers, and I'm going to put inside 5 numbers from 1 to 5. Okay, I made a mistake, from 1 to 5. And the first array method I'm going to cover here is called the join method, and that method joins all the elements in the array and return a new string. Let me quickly do that, and here I'm going to say numbers. And to access methods on arrays, you have to put a dot, and you can quickly see some methods are here. And I'll start with this join method. And inside here, you can either leave it empty like that, or you can add something inside there to say, I want my element to be joined maybe by a dash or by something, by a $sign. It depends on you. But if you leave it like that, they will be joined by commas. Returns a new string. I'm going to say const my string equal number the join. And here, if I quickly log that in my console, you'll see a new string. Let me console log my string. If I refresh here, okay, you see them actually they are joined by commas. And if you specify here, maybe you say I want them to be joined by a $sign. If you put a $sign here and you refresh, you see $signs are there. Now the next method is going to be, let me first put something here to say that this is okay. And here I'm going to say const my string equal numbers dot join. Okay. And let me quickly put a comment here, and I'll say join method. And the second method I'm going to talk about is the push method. So, the push method. And this method is going to add a new item at the end of the array. That means we are going to have a new item after 5. So we are going to have the item we want to add there. And if maybe I would like to add 6, I'll just say numbers dot push. And here I have to put the number I'm going to push. In my case, I want to push 6 so that we get an array from 1 to 6. And if I try to console log my new array, and this is not console error, it's just console log, and I'll log my array numbers. You do this and you get a new array here from 1 to 6. And now this method doesn't return anything, but the join method returns a string. But the push methods just adds a new item at the end of the array we already have. And if you log that array to the console, you'll see that a new numbers has been added. So if here, let me quickly duplicate this line. And I say maybe I would like to add 7 also. So if you refresh here, you're going to see we have an array from 1 to 7, right? Okay, as you can guess, I've talked about a method to add an item at the end of the array, and you probably be like, we should have a new method to remove an item from the end, and that's the pop method. And this method remove remove the last items in the array. And here, what we're going to do here, say numbers, but pop, and you don't specify anything. So let me quickly clear my console. And if you try again to log your array in the console, you will see that that 7 has disappeared. This 7 we added here. So if you refresh, okay, and here you'll get an error saying console log. It's because here we should have a dot. If we refresh, you'll see we get an array from 1 to 6. So that's this 7 has been removed. So if you duplicate this line and again you put it here, guess what? This 6 will also be removed. So I refresh and yeah, you get it. We have an array from 1 to 5. And that's how you delete an element. I mean, you delete the last element in the array. And now the next method is going to be the sort method. And basically this method will go through your array and sort your elements. If you want them, let's say you have people's name and you want to sort them from A to Z, or you have numbers that you want them to be ordered from from the smallest to the biggest. And let me quickly mess up with this array. Just put 5, 10, 3, 40, and maybe let me say 15. Okay, let me first clear my console. And as you can see this array here, these numbers are not ordered from the smallest to the biggest. And if you want to do that, you just say in the sort method, and here what we're going to do, you just say numbers dot sort. And as you can see here, if you hover over that function, you quickly get some hint. Okay, that's because our VS Code is aware of that function. And here you're just going to say, I'll use the arrow function, and I'll say A, B, and that should return A, B. That means from, if there are strings, it's going to be from A to Z. If there are numbers, it's going to be from the smallest number to the biggest number of that array. And if you quickly console log your array, you'll see that those numbers are now arranged. And here we go. We have a new array that starts from 3 and ends with a 40. That means those numbers are arranged from 3 to 40. 3, 5, 10, 15, and 40. Okay, now let me jump onto the next method, and that is going to be the slice method. And this method removes an element or a set of elements from the array at a specific position and returns those elements. Okay, now we consider it like a slice of a cake. When you remove a slice of a cake, you get only that part. Okay, let me quickly show you that with an example. Okay, let me say from this array, we want to get 5 and 10, and there we can use the slice method, and as it returns something, we have to store it in a constant, and here I'll say slice array, and you can name it whatever you want. And here we are just going to say numbers dot slice, and now this slice methods expect something inside the bracket, and it expects basically two numbers The first number is going to be the index of the first element, and the second number is going to be the index of the last element. And remember, the last element should be excluded. So in my case, if I just want to get 5 and 10, their end indexes are right here. So I'll say 1. I'll just put here 1, comma. As I said, the second element should be excluded. So if I put here 2, that means I'll only get 5. Now I have to put 3 as that is excluded. That means we are just going to get the element that is at the index of 1 and the element that is at the index of 2. And let me quickly give that a try. And here I'm going to console log the slice array. So if you refresh, okay, you get here 5 and 10 because the element that is at index 1, it's 5. As you can see, an array always starts at 0 and not at 1. So that element at index 1, it's a 5. And the element at index 3, it's a 15, but that is excluded. That means we are going to stop here at number 2. And you can change it and say maybe you'd like to get from 5 to 15. And there you're going to put here 1 as it has to start here. And put the index of 40 because that will be excluded. And the index of 40 is 4 because it's at index 4. If you refresh, you quickly get 5, 10, and 15. But now there is another case where you can put only one number. And if you specify one number, that is going to be the beginning of your slice and it will go till the end. So in my case here, if I only leave 4 here, that means it will start at 4 and end at 4 excluded. So we are going to only get a 40. I refresh, we only get 40. But here, if we put like 2, it's going to start from 10 up until the end. So we refresh. Yeah, you get 10, 15, and 40. And if you put 0, that means it's going to start from the first element to the last element, and you get the whole array. I refresh. Yeah, you see it. We quickly get the same array as before. And now let me explain a new method, another method, and that is the forEach method. That's how it's called, which is a comment. And this method basically it goes through the entire array, and for each element of that array it does something to that element, but this method doesn't return anything. So here, maybe if we say numbers, let me first clear my console. If we take our arrays, numbers, and we say for each, and here we are supposed to get the element, and I would like to console log that element times 2, right? Console log element times 2. And here, what is going to happen here is that we are going to get this element. Okay, my array is up here. We are going to get each element of the array and multiply it by 2. Then we log it in the console. So we should get something like 6, 10, 20, 80. And let me give it a try and I refresh. Yeah, you quickly see it right here. We get 6, 10, and so on. We can also decide and say we'll multiply it by 4. And you refresh, you'll see it's multiplied by 4. And that's how the for each method works. but we have another method similar to this for each method, but it's not really similar to it. Let me quickly put the comment here, and that's the map method, and they all do almost the same thing, but now the difference is on the output. That means the map method, if we say map numbers map, also this method will go through the entire array, and it will do something for each element of the array, but at the same time it will return something. I mean, it will return a new array. And here, if we say numbers dot map, and we'll get an element, and there we should return something because the whole function returns a new array. And here we'll say element times 4. Okay, we'll say here element times 4. So we are going to get all the element of this array multiplied by 4, but we are getting a new array. And let me quickly store that in a constant, and I'll say here array mapped array map array equal that. Okay, so if I quickly try to log this in my console, and I'll say mapped array, if I refresh, okay, you'll see a new array. But if you check this array, it's similar to this array, but this one, each element is multiplied by 4. That's why we are getting this new array. And the difference between map and for each is that for each method does something to all the elements but doesn't return anything. But the map function or the map method returns a new array. Okay, let me quickly prove that to you, and I'll try to console. Let me store this in a constant also, and I'll say for for each array, and you can give it any name you want. Okay, and I'll try to console log that here. So for each array, if you refresh here, you get two different results. For each method, you get undefined. That means it doesn't return anything. But here, you get a new array that has elements that were multiplied by 4. So let me quickly remove this line of code, and you'll be able to see each element logged times 4 in the console, and you get it right here. Hope you quickly saw the difference. And in most cases, people tend to use the map method more than the for each method. And let me quickly jump into the next method, and that is going to be the shift method. And this shift method removes an element. I mean, removes the first element of the array. As you saw up here, we have the pop element that remove the last element of the array, but this shift method removes the first element of the array. And here I'm just going to say console. Alright, okay, I'm going to first remove it from my numbers dot array. I mean numbers dot shift, and that's our shift method. And just down here, and you're not supposed to paste anything here. And here we're going to leave these brackets empty. So if I try to console log my array, array of numbers, realize that this 3 will disappear. So if I refresh, okay, if you compare this array from this one, you'll see this one starts at 5 and not the 3. We're not seeing the 3. That's because this shift method has removed that first element of the array. And now if I repeat this method again, just paste it down here, also this 5 will disappear. Let me refresh and you see the 5 has disappeared. Now we get 10, 15 and 40. And that's how the shift method works. So if we can remove an element at the beginning, or if we can remove the first element, that means also we can add a new element at the beginning of the array. And that leads us to a new method that's called the unshift method. And this unshift method, basically, it's going to add an element at the beginning of the array at position 0. As we had up there, we had the push method that adds an element at the end of the array. Now this one adds an element at the beginning of the array. So let me quickly call that method on my same array and I'll say unshift. Wait a minute, say unshift. Now if you're adding an element, you have to specify that element. And let me say you're adding 100 here. And if you try to log, let me just copy it from up here. If you try to log your array in the console, you'll see a new number at the beginning. You refresh, you see 100 here, then 10, 15, and 40. So you can change it and maybe say 1000 and you refresh, same result, you get it at the beginning of the array. Now we're going to talk about another method or function, and that is going to be the index of. And basically this function goes through the entire array and returns the position of the element you have specified in the brackets. And let me quickly do that here, and I'll say numbers dot index of. And maybe let's say you have suppose you have a big array, I mean a long array, and you would like to know the exact position of a certain element in your array. And maybe let's say in our case we have our simple array here, and I would like to know the position of 40 in my array. And here I'll just put 40, and let me quickly console let me log that in my console so that you see what it returns. Okay, and here, and this is console log, not double L. Here if you refresh, you see 3, because in this array 40 it at index 3. If you count 0, 1, 2, then 3. Or if you open here to see what's inside there, you see position 3, 40. And that's why this element has returned position 3, because it returns the position of that element. Now you may be wondering, what if we have that element repeated 2 or 3 times? Basically, this method, when it finds the first element that match your search, it returns that element's position. That's why we got a 3 here. And let's say maybe you would like to start your search at a certain position, and maybe let's say this array, let's suppose this array had more than 4 items, and you'd like to start your search at number 5, but this array doesn't have that index. So now we quickly go to that case where that method doesn't find any element. And if it doesn't find any element, it returns -1. That means there is no position where there is an element of your search. Let me quickly give it a try and show you. Okay, we got a -1, yet there is a 40 here. But remember, I say the second argument you pass inside your brackets, it's going to be the position where the search has to start. And in this case, we specify that this search has to start at index 5. Yet in our array, the array stops at index, let me see, at index 3, right? The last element is at index 3. So the search will start beyond what we have in the array. And we won't get any element, that's why we return a -1. And whenever there is no item in the array matching our search, that function returns a -1. Okay, let's talk about another function or method, and this is going to be the find method. And this method goes through your entire array trying to find one element matching your search. And if it finds one element, it returns that element. If there is no element matching, it returns undefined. And let me quickly prove that to you by trying to search for numbers in our array. And I'll store that in a constant, and I'll say constant found elements. Or let me say element found. Element found, and that is going to be equal to numbers dot find. And here I'm going to put here a function, and I'll say that function, I'm going to use the arrow function, and it's going to receive an element. So, and we're going to tell our function to return an element that is greater than 5. So this is going to go through our entire array, and the first element that matches this condition will be returned. And let me quickly log that in my console. I'll say element found. Okay, so if I refresh here and we get 1000, here, that's the element that was found, because it's the first element. So you may be wondering, why didn't we get 10 or 15 or 40 but 1000? Remember, as I said, this method goes through the entire array, and if it finds the first element, if it finds an element, it returns that element and stop there. That means it went through this array and directly find 1000, and 1000 is greater than 5, and it didn't check for other elements, it just returned that element. And here, if there is no element matching our search, the result is going to be undefined. That means we didn't get any array. And let me quickly change this, and I'll say less than 5. We'll go through the array and try to get an element that is less than 5, a number that is less than 5. And here you refresh, you see undefined, because we don't have any element in our array that is less than 5. And that's really it. Those are the methods we have covered in this video. Hope this was helpful to you. Share it with your friend and all those people who want to know more about arrays methods. So guys, thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.